G'day and welcome back to Stitch Up and another episode of Planet Coaster and the Studios Pack. And yes, guess what? As you can see by the quick movements here, Stitch Up has worked out how to do time-lapse videos. So maybe a little bit more on my journey with that a little bit later. If we get time in this episode, I'll explain how the struggle was real. So this episode, we'll spend 90% or so of this episode just making adjustments to the entrance building. The entrance building I want to be impressive. It's the entrance to the studio, but I've bitten off more than I can chew. I've made this building huge and it's somewhat symmetrical. In fact, it was very symmetrical, and I have made some adjustments in the previous gap in between this and last episode. So I've actually, when we zoom out, I'll show you the building. And you'll see now it's no longer a symmetrical left and right side building. There's the symmetry's been removed. The first major change I'm also making on the building is to make a change to the roof colour. So the original roof colour was going to be gold, and I had this idea that I liked this blue and gold, but the gold was very green in this sort of sunset. I've got this, never-ending sunset sunrise scenario happening here, and I love it, and I think it suits my park a lot. I think the Sunset Studios is probably going to be where we end up calling it. So yeah, I've changed the gold to, well, I tried out a red, and I love the red. The red tile was spectacular. However, I find that there's already enough red in the whole picture with the red of the desert. So I've gone back to this black tile, or this charcoal kind of dark grey charcoal kind of tile. You'll also notice just there, you might see on the right hand side that the studio tour ride clips through the building. We'll adjust that in the very last bit of this video, so just stand by on that one. Some changes I've also made here is I've taken out all of the round turrets, and I've replaced them with square ones. These fit better with the base of the building, where the roof connects in with the cornices of the building, or those sort of architrave type parts of the building. So I'm not an architect, I don't know all the terms, although I am married to one, but I have no idea what these terms are. But yes, you can see we've made those changes and just made them more square. In a moment, you'll also see that I get rid of the two central turrets, the left and right central turrets that are still there at the moment. I decided to take them out and have a look, and we go with that. I've also done the indented roofs, so the flat roofs weren't really working for me. I didn't like that. It looked like it was waiting for something else. And so now we've got this lovely sort of, the rain can fall down into the gutters of these sort of lovely detail. So just going along and sort of replacing all those and making sure we get all of the little bits and pieces. You'll probably find that underneath this roof there are still some of the gold pieces under there, but I think everything to the eye is completed by the end of this episode on that roof. So the roof hasn't been fully detailed yet. I'll have a look a bit later on with posts along the roof, turrets, anything else that I want to add in for detail. You can see there we've just removed those, and those end circular turrets. They also, I think the scale was wrong. I think they were too tall, and I think if you look at the size of the roof compared with the size of the building and then the size of the park, I think all of a sudden the roof was too big. It was too grand, too big, too much like a Disneyland castle, and not a good one at that point. So yeah, so nice little roof details there. I do like how these corner ones sit out. At the front they sit out from the profile of the building. If you have a look at that horizontal profile, these guys sit out at about a 45-degree angle on both sides, on both axes. So I like that. I'm going around here and just popping in the bottom of these little, the ends of the roofs, I guess. Now on the corners, I can see that they don't quite connect over. There's a little gap. So I'm not sure if I'm leaving that. I think I'll go around later and fix something up though with that. That's something that we'll probably get to a little bit later on. So, yeah, if you can just, if you have a look here, we've got a yeah, we've got a staircase. You can see there's an external staircase that's been added in. So if I have a look at this side of the building, this is the side that I work on for most of this episode. This is the easiest side, and what I'm also doing here is I'm not squaring away these. So if you look at it, if you do look at the front of the building, then you look at this side of the building, you'll notice that the windows don't line up. But rarely would you go from one side to the other. So what I'm trying to do here is just give a little bit of that sort of theme park perspective where everything looks kind of straight and narrow, and not straight and narrow, but it looks straight and evened and everything's squared away. And then if you were to take a ruler and have a look, you'd see that things are a couple of feet off here and there, and that's quite a bit. Again, we're saying, would a guest look at this? Would they look at two sides of the building at once? If they do, we need to square it away. If they don't look at the front and this side at the moment, then those don't need to be perfectly angled with each other. And that just helps me with the speeding up. I don't have to then grab a piece and spin it 180 degrees and swing it all the way out and then copy it down. I'm also changing my approach to how I build single and double windows here. You can notice there the gap here is just on this little bit here is a little bit wider. So I'm actually doing these double windows, and then you'll see on that left hand, this side, the left hand side, that I've actually got triple windows. I'm also not sure I'm going to keep the horizontal windows happening. And these columns here actually that I'm putting in, I go ahead and remove those a little bit later. And in fact, I remove these front columns as well because I actually find that the bottom of it's just looking very columny, very sort of vertical columns. And in some points it's great, and in other parts, it's just no good. I played around with putting in a fourth extended row of vertical columns, and then what I did is I removed the whole lot and just popped in some windows. So I'm trying to keep this a little bit symmetrical with the front, but not exactly the same as the front. I'm trying to keep it somewhat, you make sure it's a similar style. The front is a bit more ornate, and you can see here the windows are at a different height. But again, this works because the guests would be looking at it from ground level, and we've got all the perspectives kind of right. Building in the shadows here, I've got an idea that I might try building at midday as a default time. The shadows on this park is all about shadows, and I kind of like it. I think we're going to play with that. I think I've got some plans to draw a mural on the side of one of my sound stages, and I was going to do a huge sunset on that, and have the studio tour actually go around that, and the idea would be that sunset would have been used in a different type of movie, just very much like at the Universal backlot tour. You've got these huge paintings, and they sometimes are on sides of the buildings, and sometimes they're on a freestanding structure, and you can just see that these have probably been used in multiple different movie settings and just adjusted with lighting and props and even painting over them at some point. So I think it's you'll see. I want this studio tour to be a little bit reminiscent of a real studio. So remember, we're merging between theme park and working studio, but we're swinging back between the two worlds quite a bit because we decide that it has to be a theme park, and in fact, my mind is thinking about rides. I think it's time for a ride, and I think I'm going to go the whole hog and put a fourth dimension coaster straight in one of the upcoming episodes, but we'll see. Now, at this point, I'm trying to anchor this building to the ground. I built this thing, I built it from the middle, and then I worked on the roof, and then I've started to flesh out the connection to the ground and the foundations. it's a learning curve for me. I probably this is becoming a building that I'm just adding to, and when it looks right, I stop. It's not the way I think I should be building in Planet Coaster. I should have a formed view of what I need to do and the right order I should do it, and then I think I need to execute that. So yeah, again, if you're following my progress with my YouTube videos and my Planet Coaster series, then you'll see especially the comparisons between this studio park and the adventure park that I've actually come a long way with my building. It's not about terrain. It's not about moving terrain and quick wins and adding trees and all that sort of stuff. Now it's actually about some some building, and in fact a lot more building. In fact, everything in this park so far is building. Very happy with the previous episode too, and the changes that we made to the studio ride. We've moved it from, as you're looking at the park, looking at the entrance, we moved it from the right-hand side where you can still see the path is just next to this building, the existing path, and that must be demolished soon. You can still see that that's where it was, and it just I couldn't work out the path of this. Where does this ride begin and end? And it was going to be placeholders and all this sort of stuff. Now I'm making commitments to where it starts and where it ends, and it's basically I'm thinking of this as though I was a real studio designer or a theme park designer, and at some point they'd be putting everything down on paper, but at some point they'd be sitting in a meeting and they'd go, look, Walt, or whoever you are, Stitch Up, we need you to work out where this ride is going to start and end. We can't do anything until you tell us where it's going to start and end. And I think that's cool. So that's a little segue on how that's happening. I've actually grabbed these foundation pieces and I've started to use them as well for the tops of the balconies. Now, the tops of the balconies, I'm playing with 45-degree angles, and I'm playing with these pieces here. And this is going to be tedious, and this is going to be slightly, should we say, well, tedious is probably the word, time-consuming, but while this is building in the background, I'll talk about my channel, if that's okay with everyone. So, and we'll get back to this in just a sec. You'll see me gripping with Planet Coaster controls. All right, so Stitch Up as a YouTube channel, and how that's all going. So I hope you everyone's enjoying it. I'm having an absolute blast. Inspiration is coming back to me for Planet Coaster, and I'm getting some ideas, and then I'm taking some little breaks and things while inspiration is dry. And I think that's how everyone finds it at the which is really cool. I think people have these dry spells where you just can't come up with new ideas, and I know I'm no different. It's the execution that I'm quite green on, but I want to look back at these videos in the future, a couple of years down the track, and actually see that I've made massive improvements. I think the majority of my builds will be time-lapse. I hope to always continue playing Planet Coaster, and that leads me to another point. So I'm trying to work out how much of the time spent in Planet Coaster should be as part of my YouTube channel, and how much should actually be part of just building. And I guess time lapses are going to help me with this. I've started to do a little bit of the maths, and this is at speed 3. I noticed also some of the other guys, some of them are doing it at speed 8 times the speed, and I'm not brilliant at maths, but surely that means that you would need to record 4 hours of footage to get a half-an-hour episode. And with my ratio, I'm looking at, and I think this moves quite nicely. I just think we're on a bit of this first time lapse is on a bit of a time-consuming part of this building. But we don't go around and do the whole building, so don't panic. In fact, what we do is we really start to play around with detailing this side, and then I think what I've also set myself up for is that if I do it on one side of the building, I need to do similar on the other side, but it doesn't have to be exactly the same. And I think there needs to be some continuity, but yeah, not literally do this side, 3 pieces, go back and do the opposite on the other side. I'm trying to get away with that. Here I'm just actually grabbing this balcony and trying to put it across, and I fluke the shape, and the shape works as a mirror, but then I realised that the foundations, those mid-level foundations, the top of the balconies, they're not in place, so I've got nowhere to place it. In fact, I'm trying to place it on the walkable balcony and not on those foundations type balconies. So here we go. I go ahead and select all those and I move them across. Yeah. So, I just want to talk for a moment as well, if I can, just about my inspirations for the YouTube gaming channel. So there's a few gamers out there that I'm sure everyone who, if anyone is following my channel, I'm sure there's a good chance you've heard of these people. But we've got there's people who influence my gaming, influence how I'm putting together this channel, and I guess I suppose a big call out at the moment would be Jonty from Geekism and the Geekism community, because I just think that's a really good story of just how pleasant the experience can be. And I'm sure it's had its challenges, as any creation of something artistic would be, and Jonty's always great with sharing that, but it's just a nice. He brings out a lot of videos. He listens to his community, and he doesn't see it's not the Jonty show. He says that, and I think that's really cool. That it's about the geekism community, and you couldn't get a better foundation for starting off of a community or a channel or something like that. So Jonty at Geekism, massive fan here. Shout out to you, a massive fan, but thank you for just doing everything you do to help other new YouTubers like myself. So yeah. So then, of course, I suppose my first inspiration was always Quill18, and Quill18 always plays strategy games. Well, not always, but mostly plays strategy games. And the thing is, Quill was doing this years and years and years ago, before it was popular and everyone wanted to do it, and people were doing it at various degrees of success or whatever. Quill has just been a constant, and I started off with Quill. He was already going for a few years, but he was playing SimCity 2013, and I was watching those because I love that game, and Quill used to bring out some ripper videos on that, and he did some City Skylines stuff as well, and I struggle with City Skylines a bit. I don't struggle with the game. I just I don't know. That's a whole nother discussion, but this isn't about that. This is about Quill18. But yeah, Quill's done some amazing tutorials, or Quill18's done some amazing tutorials on things like Kerbal Space Program, and in fact, his Civilization, 4, 5, and 6, are just spectacular. He's just such a good player of these games, but he's also a good producer of video content, and he's just so entertaining. I think he should have a Netflix show, to be honest. I'm serious. He's in fact he's engaging in front of the camera, and he's engaging when you can just hear his voice. So I think, yeah, Quill18, I'm just worship, brilliant. So yeah, there are lots of other YouTubers out there who have helped inspire me, and I'm not going to. This is not going to be everyone all hail these people. It's not that. It's everyone inspires people differently, and everyone takes inspiration from something in their own way, and that they're my two call outs at the moment for helping me to. Want to get this up and running and just giving it a go. And the thing is, I am at the moment, I am checking my views and my subscribers and my comments, and it's low, and that's fine. And I'm working on this little theory that dance like no one's watching is what where I kind of get my little theory, and this is that I'm going to keep doing this, even if no one's watching, or even if 3 people are watching, or only if it's just, the same 2 or 3 people commenting on my videos. I'm going to keep doing it anyway because 2 things. One, I love it, and I didn't think I would, and I tried it, and sure, I went out and I bought the hardware because I didn't have a good gaming computer, and I went out and bought my Alienware computer, and my partner and I looked at each other, and we kind of thought, ooh, will this be one of those things you'll buy and then in 3 months go, I'll just go play the PlayStation 4. But as it turns out, I'm loving it, and I think games like Planet Coaster really help. One thing I do want to do with my channel is to start to get a little bit more of a structure and regular episodes of different games. So I get stuck in this amazing loop because a DLC comes out in Planet Coaster, and I love it. But then actually, just before I get on with that, you'll notice now I've put in these horizontal bars, and these are the same ones as the ones that run around the underside of the roof, and they sit behind those front balconies as well. I'm actually playing around on this side of the building. I'm thinking of not having any horizontal structure, and I make some adjustments to Windows and reverse these changes very soon. But I actually changed the way this whole side of the building kind of looks, and whether or not I want horizontalness happening. So. Or if I want those concrete pieces. The other thing is, though, all those concrete pieces are white on the front. They're an off-white, a couple of shades up from the base white. This I've actually picked, if you see on the side of right here, these ones here are actually a nice grey. So I actually start the process of going along. Here we go. Yep. And I go and once I redo a few balconies, I actually go and I start making all the white ones into grey. So and in fact, I'll start selecting some multiples just here, and then I go and change them into this grey. So the process of doing that has already begun. Again, I won't do the whole building in this episode. It'll just be, this will be one of the ones, even though I'm doing time-lapse, this building will be tweaked and finished off camera, because I don't think this is super interesting to watch people change 300 pieces to change the color because Stitch Up decided to do something white instead of a lovely grey. So yeah, in a moment I'll start to look at some lighting and chandeliers, and we'll go ahead and sort that out. But as I was saying, yeah, I want to get to playing a few more games and doing regular episodes, and just not being stuck in a Planet Coaster loop, because I love this new pack so much, and I have all these ideas about how I want to run my studio, or my studio theme park, and so yeah. So other games that I'm playing currently, I have an Avalon Airport for Airport CEO, and I think we've got a few episodes. I think there's 5 episodes there, and I'm doing a lot of that building off camera as well. But I think with that one, I'll stop the off camera building, and I'll keep making sure we do that only on camera. Yeah, one thing on Airport CEO I've just noticed, and maybe I've got to have another look at it, but you can now do the unlockable areas. I think it's $750,000 for a new tile, and that's quite inexpensive, and that's really good. I mean, it's amazing that you can have 2 or 3 tiles unlocked or something like that, but it does give you a warning if you try and do it in an existing game. And I built my existing airport knowing that this was coming up. So it was part of my future expansion. So I don't know. I wonder, I'm in 2 minds. I'm considering restarting Avalon Airport, and so that might disappear. There might be a new Avalon Airport Mark II that is, well, let's consider that one the government changing as construction had started, and the new government who's just got into power has decided, no, we're not going to do it. So here I'm hanging a chandelier, and of course, I'm not sure why. You guys will know why, but I'm not overly sure why. But this this chandelier was at an angle, and I think I hadn't selected a piece that was already squared away, and I need to make sure I do that. So I selected one of the little torches, and I've squared it away now at all right angles, and so I was able to pop a chandelier just sitting in there. And I've actually put 5 across. So we've got 3 for the gaps and then 2 that sit above those balconies. But the 5 of them line up nicely, and I think that would look lovely once we start to look at lighting. I don't want the whole of the hotel lit at the front, and I'm going to remove some of these little lamps because I do want some floodlights to at night time to be looking up at the building. So I'm actually going to set on the other side of the pathway, looking directly up at the building. I'm going to put some lovely floodlights, and I'm going to put plants around them as well. So that'll be sort of on the boundary of the car park. Just making a few more changes to a few of these little side bits, and here playing around with a castle edge of the wall that helps give me these little jut out bits. I think this building is an interesting shape. I like the front is grand, but then as you go around to the sides, you get to see that it's ornate and it's got balconies, and that the inside would be interesting too, because you got lots of bits of things happening there. So just a couple of aerial shots now as well. If you have a look here, you can see my staircase there. I'm now, just as a final bit of this episode, I make the necessary adjustments to change the sunken path of the studio's backlot tour ride. And of course, forever struggling here with underground and the pathing of the rides not connecting, because there are different heights or different grades or different slopes, and so I'm having a few issues here. I think what I do in the end is I go ahead and remove them all towards the station of the ride, and then I actually path it out to the top where I can see it, and then once I make the necessary changes, it comes in at a better angle. So here we are. We do go back and remove that again, and just working out. But I think every time I do this, I get a little better at this, and I get a little quicker, and then I start to preempt it. So yeah, look, I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Hit the like button, please leave a comment, and I really look forward to seeing you in the next episode, and thank you for watching Stitch Up. Cheers.